Hello guys, Lid here. So this is a day 3 update for the Fire Mage Reliquarian, and I already swapped to Enmity Embrace. I tried to make it as cheap as possible to swap into this. And the damage wise, we basically tripled the damage. I think on day 1 we have like something like 6 million, now we have like 20 million something, 21 if I'm not wrong. And the clear is obviously going to be better. With Frostbling, we just bling around and kill things. One thing that this build doesn't have is coverage. Like, you don't have like bunch of explosion and all that stuff, because that one is high budget versions. We will have some explode, but on the mid budget one we don't really have it yet. But so far I play this build, it still map really fast, and it has a really good single target, so I'm pretty happy with. And another thing that I do for the build is also I change into another skill. So basically I'm using Firestorms. I will explain a little bit why I choose to go for a Firestorm, because it's a little bit mechanical. But I want to try a bunch of skill because, once again, this is a Firecaster. You can use any fire skill that you want. But the main reason for the Firestorm is because it fit really well. I tried between Flame Surge and this. I think this one deal a little bit more DPS. And also Firestorm, you can be range. While Flame Surge, because you need the enemy to be burning, you kind of have to get close with the RF. And this setup using Intensity. This is the support gem over here. And the Intensity going to give you a lot of AoE for the 8%. And then every time you cast the supporter spell, you're going to have 1 Intensity stack up to maximum of 3. The more Intensity stack you have, the smaller the AoE, but the more area damage you're going to have. And this works really well with Firestorm. So for those examples like this, when I cast them, it's going to go big, and then it's going to get smaller and smaller. And this is really good for Firestorm, because Firestorm also have a lot of small projectile, and the smaller the AoE, the more it's going to overlap and hit the same target. So it's shotgun the same target. And that's the reason why Firestorm can feels like it has more DPS than Flame Surge, even though the POB doesn't say the same thing. If you check my POB and you change the Firestorm into Flame Surge, I think the Flame Surge has something like 35 million, something like that. And just because of the overlapping, the Firestorm end up making more DPS. The problem with Firestorm is it's really hard to calculate the DPS of the Firestorm, so it's really hard to see the actual damage number. And another setup that I knew is also using cast when damage taken, combined with volatile death of seeding, and we can actually trigger the cast when damage taken, because Enmity Ring, it's going to hit you with fire damage every time you use a skill. And I can demonstrate that when I put in Desecrate here. So when I cast them, you will see that I will spawn a corpse, and then after the next turn, I will spawn the volatile orbs. So this basically help us summon the Phantasms a little bit faster, kind of maintain, especially when I see the target. But the problem with this one now is, because we also stacking fire resistance, it's really hard to proc the cast when damage taken. So either we go for more quality. I have an idea by using Essence of the Star, because it gives 30% quality. Maybe from there we can consistently proc the Desecrate and Volatile Orbs. If we can do that, that means we do not need the Arcanist Blend setup anymore. But that's for later, if we actually able to make it work. But for now, cast when damage taken with Volatile Death of Seeding, this is just a nice for mapping. And for bosses, you can go for the Desecrate here. And we can also go for Steel Skin to get a little bit more defense. So this is an option for the defensive part. We can put the Steel Skin here and follow that here, so it's benefit from the 10% quality. So that is the new additions to the setup. And now let's go through all the setup one by one. The first thing first, the item that you need to swap into this, of course, is an Enmity Embrace, because the entire setup is to design around this ring. So why this ring is so strong? Because it has a line damage penetrate fire resistance equal to your overcap fire resistance up to 200%. So right now we have 274, and if I press on my flush, I have 308. So we have something like 218 extra fire resistance or overcap fire resistance, since the 308 is the total resistance you have. So we kind of cross 200%, and it's not really necessary to cross 200%, because the penetrations coming from this ring is capped at 200%. You still can penetrate via other source, but from this source specifically, it's capped at 200%. And penetrate 200 fire resistance is really strong. If you guys still remember the prototype, by the 200 radiant resistance, it basically like triple your damage, something like that. It's really strong. Now the downside of this ring is it's going to reduce your fire resistance, so you're going to need a lot more fire resistance to reach that overcap 100%. And if you buy this ring, make sure that is 65% reduced fire resistance. You probably can go for like 66%, but you're going to need more fire resistance. My recommendation, go for 65. It's going to make your life a lot easier. And for the weapon, it's still the same. This is Sorres, and Dark Monarch is still the same because this is also another core part of the build. And for the armor, I'm choosing to go for Cloak of Flame. It gives you a lot of fire resistance. It's also convert 40% physical damage taken to fire damage, which is really strong because we are stacking fire resistance. And for the amulet, still Dragonflight, I just buy the one with Firestorm instead of Flame Surge. And for the ring, this is Helical Ring, and this is not mirror or anything like that, so you do not need the Reflecting Mist. You basically just use Essence of Zeal to get the cast speed, and you're looking for fire resistance and elemental resistance. If you can get to all elemental resistance, that's nice, but if you don't, just get the T1 fire resistance and you're good. If you have open suffix like me, you can also craft fire and chaos resistance. That's going to help with your chaos resistance. And if you get open prefix, you can craft a -7 mana cost, which is the preferable one because that's going to make your mana management a lot easier because your mana cost is a lot lower. And for the glove, it's still the same glove as before. I just changed the implicit. I'm just using the Icar. The red one will give you the chance to unnerve. That's going to and make enemy take 10% increase spell damage. And the blue one, you want physical damage convert to fire damage because Avatar Fire convert 50%, and from the Mastery, it's only convert 40%. So we're actually losing 10% DPS, and having that 10% on the implicit, we now have the full DPS basically. And the other side important here is just life. Fire resistance, life regeneration rate. If you have open suffixes, you can craft fire and chaos resistance. And if you have open prefixes, you can also craft the damage convert to fire. There is also this craft that gives you convert to fire damage. And for the boots, movement speed, life regen, and some resistance. And you can swap the resistance to fire resistance if that is not fire resistance. And if you have open suffix, the same thing with this one. You can craft fire and chaos resistance. That's going to help with your chaos resistance. And for the implicit, I'm going for the fire resistance and life regenerate rate because once again, this is budget. Fire resistance will help you cap the Enmity Embrace, and the life regeneration rate will help with your regen. And the last one is the bell. This is Iron Anguish. I basically choose this just for the maximum life. It gives 14% and also give you a lot of fire resistance. And it's going to change your endurance charges, become brutal chargers. Brutal Charge is going to give you chance to do triple damage, so this is a good amount of DPS from this one. And there is a way for you to still benefit from the Endurance Charges, which by using Reliquarian Impatient, but that one is also pretty expensive. So I decided to skip that one because once again, it's expensive. So that is basically the item, and for the passive tree, this is what the passive tree looks like. And for the anointment, I'm going for Overcharge, so we can generate power charges, frenzy charges, and endurance charges, which the endurance charges is going to convert into brutal charges because of this spell. As for the Ascendancy, I'm still using Dawnbreaker, Placane, and also Polarity Devastations. The coverage enemy in us is really, really strong. So the passive changed a little bit. I basically removed the entire section here. So we're now basically parting to the left, and we got the cluster. And this is also another thing that you really, really need to swap into the Enmity Ember setup. You will need the Dorian Lessons, you will need a Prismatic Heart and Smoking Remains. Prismatic Heart and Smoking Remains is optional, but Prismatic Heart, it also gives you 10% elemental resistance, so this is really strong for the Enmity Embrace. And Dorian Lesson you need for the Leech. As for the third one, I choose Smoking Remains because this is the highest DPS. You can also go for Corrosive Elements or something else, that's fine. Unfortunate part is there is no cluster setup that have the Dorian Prototype and Prismatic Heart on the front. So either you want it or not, you have to part to the back. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but Prismatic Heart is really strong for this setup. And then I have Small Cluster setup, and this is where you're going to get most of your fire resistance. So what you need is get increased effect, and you need to get fire resistance. Ideally, you will want something like this with also elemental resistance, and then that's going to help cap your fire resistance. This is not a hard craft to do. It's just quite tedious because you basically just using the transportations, and you basically alteration them until you got the increased effect and also either fire resistance or elemental resistance, and you basically regal them and you try to hit the third mode, either all elemental resistance or fire resistance. And this is basically how you craft the jewel. I really try to find another way to get enough fire resistance. It's just this is the cheapest and the easiest way to do, and the base is also really cheap. I'd buy this around like 10C or something like that. And it's also not hard to make because it's just a matter of hitting the right combinations. You can also use the new mechanic, the new mechanic crafting. So you can talk to this guy, Vesper, and then let's say like if this is the one that I want to craft, I got the increase effect, I got the fire resistance, I need the all elemental resistance, I can use a regal here and try to hit them. If it doesn't hit the all elemental resistance, you can try to choose prefix if the prefix option available, and then you can try to exalt them. Again with the Vesper craft, this one basically gives you a lot of chances. So it increases your odds to actually get the item that you want. This crafting really strong, and it really helps a lot in terms of like making an item like this, or even an item in general. Like this one also made using Vesper. This one also the same thing. So that is basically the small cluster jewel, and I don't think you can buy this one because I don't think that many people play this kind of setup. So unfortunately, you have to craft it yourself. And another source of fire resistance is also a jewel like this to get the increased maximum life and then fire resistance. This one I go for maximum fire resistance because you need at least one to reach 90%. If I press my ruby, I'm 90% maximum fire res. As for the mana reservation, you don't really need it. This is 2%. I think if I remove all my jewel, I'm going to go down to like 100 mana, something like that, which is more than good enough. And the other jewel, you can also get jewel like this, with maximum life, fire resistance, and fire and cold, or fire and lightning, something like that. This is basically going to give you more fire resistance. And the last spot where you can get a lot of fire resistance is from the Little Pride. And Little Pride have one of the mod, it's going to give you fire resistance here, it gives fire resistance here, it gives fire resistance here. And the other, this one is double damage, which is good for us, it gives us more DPS. And for the Little Pride itself, you need to make sure that the warrior under Rakiata, because that's going to give you temper by war. And this is a really strong keystone if you already have the Watcher Eye. So the Watcher Eye that I'm using is this one, give me chaos resistance while affected by purity of element. This is how I get my chaos resistance to 58. And then cold and lightning damage taken as fire damage while affected by purity of fire. So that is two mods that is best for the Watcher Eye. And if you do not have the Watcher Eye yet, you do not take this keystone. So only take this keystone if you already have your Watcher Eye. And that's going to improve your survivability by quite a lot. Now for the Timeless Jewel itself, I'm going to showcase how you can find them just in case if you guys confused. So this is POB. When you're on POB, on the bottom there is Find Timeless Jewel. So you need to click them, and you need to click Little Pride, and the Conqueror, you need to click Rakiata. And then Jewel Socket, you need to pick the Agnostic, if I'm not wrong. The Agnostic, yes. Just make sure that this is the socket that you want. And click Filter Node here. What this is going to do is basically going to search based on the node that you already take on the passive tree. On the search for node, you can click, there's a bunch of mod here. There's a few that are good one, but for the swap, the most important one is fire resistance. This is going to give you 20 fire resistance per node, and you basically can search. There is 4 of them that are on tree, and when you find them, click here and then shift. This is going to select from this to this, and then you can go for a leak. Make sure this is all flame, and then you can open trade URL, and it's going to bring you to the trade website, and you can see how much the price that you're going to be. You have a lot of options for this. Just pick the one that are cheap because this is early setup. You don't want to spend too much currency on this one. There's other mods that are pretty nice to have. For example, like this one, increase maximum life. This one give physical damage as extra fire. So you can kind of add some mod like life here, adding life, physical as added as fire. And another thing is also double damage. Let me see if I can find one. This is double damage, and the easy way to do it is you can make sure that this is fire resistance. You can change the number at the back from 0 to 3, and this is basically going to search only for the Timeless Jewel that have 3 fire resistance at the very least. So this is the one with 3 fire resistance, and you can change it into 2. This is going to make sure that this Timeless Jewel here have at least 2 fire resistance. So this is how you search the Timeless Jewel, just in case you guys don't know how to do it. And another way to get fire resistance is by using tattoo. There is tattoo on the red one, which is the one, I think this one. The problem is this tattoo is pretty expensive, and this is the reason why I'm not including this tattoo, because it's very expensive. 140C for one tattoo, and you're going to need a lot of tattoo because that tattoo only gives you 6 fire resistance. So this is what I recommend to get all the fire resistance. This is the cheapest way I can find, and this is going to make it easier to swap into the Enmity Embrace. And as for everything else, it's still basically the same. The next one, we will working on the higher budget. For the higher budget, there is 2 options. Either we go for physical or we stay at fire. The problem with fire spell is the crit chance is pretty low, so it's really hard to scale the crit. And for the end game DPS, in order for you to reach like a really high number, you really have to go for crit. There is no other way to get more DPS if you're not going crit. So that is the main problem that I have for the higher budget. But we'll see. I will play around with it. I have a few setup that can give you a lot of base crit chance, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. And also today, when I record this video, GGG also have a patch. It buffed the loot from the foliage, and I do try it, and the foliage loot feels a lot better, including the charge. You see the sunken box a lot more often. I actually got one hit from them, so that's really nice. The monster density is a lot higher. In general, it drops more loots basically. So the chart now is not just an empty place, because that's what it feels like before. You're just doing it because you want to go to the foliage, and even the foliage, if you don't set up it properly, it's not really profitable. So this buff does make the lead mechanic a lot more enticing and a lot more interesting to do. So if you haven't tried the lead mechanic, highly recommend try it now. You're going to find a lot more things drops there, and there is a bunch of buff that's going to coming into from the week 1 patch. They're talking about Abyss, they're talking about Legion, so we're going to get more loot when they pass all of that. But for today, the buff is specifically for the early mechanic, so we'll see what they did with the week 1 patch. So I think that's it from me today. And if you guys have any questions, just leave it in the comment below. I will try my best to answer it. And thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one.